Hello, YouTube. Now, I'm aware of the fact that there are far more important things to talk about, and I do typically respect, or at least support Alex Jones, and feel that he's typically on track with regard to a lot of vital issues and problems that we currently face. However, I was rather enraged upon viewing a recent interview of his with an individual whose name I cannot recall, but I'll put the link in the sidebar. And they were discussing a legal document that most of the states, or at least 5 of the states from which they extrapolated the likelihood that most of the states had this terminology in a law that said humans or animals. That is, it put humans or other animals. Humans and other animals. In other words, it put humans within the same category as other animals. It considered humans to be animals. Now, Alex Jones's guest had a fundamental problem with this. And his justification for his fundamental problem with it is absurd and absolutely, it's laughable. It's completely and utterly laughable. He cited part of the Bible in which it says that God gave man dominion over animals. God created man on whatever day it was and gave them dominion over animals. And so he said that as a result, he ended up winning this court case because he said that it was a violation of his religious freedom under the Constitution for men to be considered animals. Now, there are multiple problems with this, but, Alex Jones concurred with him. He said, yeah, this is part of their attempt to demonize humans, considering them the same as other animals. Now, one very obvious issue with this is the fact that men are animals. Humans are animals from a biological standpoint. It's a fact. Doesn't matter what the Bible says. I'm sorry if you place the words in a book that was written by someone that's somehow extolled as this universal moral guide for a substantial percentage of, or a decent percentage of people in the U.S. anyway, to one extent or another, view it as their moral guide. I'm sorry if you view what this book says, take that in higher regard than scientific fact. Now, I'm not here to dogmatically preach science either. I think that there's a certain scientific mentality that is problematic as well when it's used as dogma, as it can be, just like religion. And I find that there's a dark side to logic in terms of the mechanistic, progress-oriented view that pervades much of modern society and contributes to a lot of problems, just as does religion. But the notion that you're going to say that because the Bible places humans on a higher level than men and separates humans from animals, that this means that humans are not animals despite the fact that they are in a biological sense, that's absurd. And, it's as I've discussed in previous videos, it is a spectrum, of course. I've discussed this with regard to other points I was attempting to make, but there's no clear division from humans and other animals. Certainly humans are among the more intelligent, and they have certain capabilities that other animals do not, but you know what? Dogs have many capabilities that ants do not. Likely, dogs are far more different from ants than humans are from dogs. So this notion that we can draw this, arbitrary line in the sand after humans, and everything that's not human, every animal that's not human, it should be placed in an entirely different category, and humans should not even be called animals, despite the fact that they have various characteristics that fit the definition of an animal. They have the characteristics that fit the definition of an animal sufficiently to qualify them as animals. This is simply absurd. The other issue with this is the fact that the Bible does place humans on a higher level than animals. This is not merely an issue because of the biological definition. it is also an issue because it justifies exploitation of animals, mistreatment of animals, and in fact, it is a symptom of one of the fundamental problems, or the driving force for inhumanity today. If we were to say there is one ethos, one world outlook or view of everything that has contributed to virtually all the problems we see in society today, it is this desire to dominate, to control, to impose your will on others based upon your perceived entitlement. And of course, the irony of this, the tragic irony of this, is Alex Jones preaches the gospel of anti-tyranny, which I commend him for. He hates tyranny. He hates government tyranny. He hates the Transportation Security Administration of the United States sticking their hands down people's pants and grabbing people's genitals, including children, molesting children, under the auspices of freedom and safety. And I commend Jones wholeheartedly for this, as mentioned. The government abuses that we're seeing in various industrialized and non-industrialized countries today are horrific. But the hypocrisy comes forth when you can, in this video, when you consider the fact that he is agreeing with the perpetuation of tyranny. He is agreeing with the Bible, which is openly advocating for domination. And the Bible does. Derek Jensen quotes this in a rather expert fashion, these various passages from the Bible which explicitly justify domination, control, and abuse and traumatization in a variety of forms. The Bible justifies rape of women. The Bible justifies murder of people of different religions, etc. The Bible, and in this instance, the Bible justifies domination of animals. It justifies also domination of the earth. I'm paraphrasing here, but there are passages that say something to the effect of, man was created to have dominion over the earth as well as animals, and, man should go forth and pillage the earth. And so we see this doctrine to the modern day being responsible for the decimation of the environment. 100+ species go extinct every day. Acidification of the oceans, mass deforesting of virtually entire continents in the past. Iraq used to be heavily forested. Mass depletion of pollution of rivers, making them uninhabitable. Massive die-offs of salmon, etc. I mean, the environmental problems are horrific, and it all stems from this doctrine, this ethos of we are entitled to the earth, to control it, to destroy it, to use it for profit or whatever other purposes humans want to use it for. And so we see in this clip that is in the sidebar below, we have Alex Jones and his guest justifying domination of animals. And so this flies in the face of everything Jones stands for, and one must question whether Jones actually doesn't oppose tyranny in itself, but in fact opposes, and does not oppose domination in itself, but in fact opposes domination of man, or perhaps he has this is speculation, but perhaps he has this desire to dominate and to not be dominated. And in fact, we actually see this as pervasive in liberation movements, so-called social movements throughout history and to the modern day, where they say that they want liberation for their people, right? But they want to turn like Marxism, for instance. They want a dictatorship of the proletariat, which they allege will ultimately lead to equality. But they posit as the solution for this hierarchical domination of capitalists by workers, or rather workers are dominated by capitalists, they propose as the solution domination of workers, or ascendancy of workers into a position of hierarchical power. And this is perhaps what Alex Jones harbors to some extent, is because we've been so inculcated into this culture of hierarchy and domination. Jones does not oppose domination in itself. He does not oppose humans doing whatever the hell they want to with the earth or with other animals. As Jones frequently says, it's the destiny of humans to go to the stars and to go to other galaxies and to keep inventing and innovating till we innovate our way to extinction, is what I think that we may do. But he opposes this unjust domination by those in power in government, but simultaneously justifies the domination that runs throughout the Bible, about how men are entitled to dominate women, about how men are entitled to dominate the earth, about how men are entitled to dominate animals, about how men are entitled to murder people of different religions. And this ethos is the founding ethos of civilization itself. And not only does it justify animal and earth abuse and abuse of women, we see statistics such as 1 in 4 women are raped within their lifetimes, and it also justifies like the very essence, the very fabric of our society. The corporate structure, for instance, is inherently hierarchical. It's inherently coercive, and getting more so in the United States over the past 30 years, when you have CEOs earning 30 times what their employees own. But this is not simply a matter of reforming the system. This is a matter of people at the lower echelons of corporations not utilizing their full potential and not being fulfilled as human beings because they're dictated to from on high, from the hierarchy above them, or the echelon above them, which is dictated to from the echelon above them, which is dictated to from the management, etc. And we have the society of cutthroat competition, and in which we don't view one another as equal. To the contrary, we view one another as our competition, or as individuals to be suppressed, repressed, oppressed, denied their right to be a respected member of a healthy community, in essence. So this was a very multifaceted rant. But in essence, I just want to address this notion that Alex Jones is anti-tyranny, yet he objects to a biologically accurate definition of humans as animals in favor of a definition that places humans above animals and entitled to dominion over them based on what the Bible says. We derive this subjective morality from this book that people wrote, and it is this dominion over animals that justifies animal abuse and exploitation, which is pervasive in our world today. And in a more general and expansive sense, it is this ethos that justifies a wide variety of abuse, domination, and exploitation of the earth, of women, of workers, of people generally, and of the government itself. So, and of the TSA molesting people, and of police murdering minorities and poor people with immunity and impunity. So it's very ironic and unfortunate that the very forces that Alex Jones condemns were actually initially at the core brought into place by this ethos that places humans above animals, above the earth, above women. This is the same arbitrary justification and the same mentality that has its origins at the beginning of civilization that justifies the abuses that Alex Jones condemns in the cops. The cops have a perceived entitlement to abuse us, and etc. And the environment and times